I also see that once again, I'm probably the oldest person in the room, which is not so good, but there you go. Okay, as Jim just told you, I'm the chief of party of a project that USAID is supporting, and I'm just going to take you through it very quickly. Don't worry, it's quick, I promise. Okay. It shows you what we're up to, and I'll be delighted to have questions afterwards from any of you. You can ask anything you wish, okay? Oops. Okay, very briefly, it's worth about 10 million US dollars. It runs for about 5 years. My partners are WCS and Traffic, who are in the room today, to make sure I tell you the right things. And you can see, most importantly, we've got a government counterpart, which is the CITES Management Authority. In saving species, we support the government to make changes, and that's very important, because in Vietnam, government has a very central role. Our goal is very simple. As you heard from ENV before, it's very much in line with what the NGOs are trying to do, to reduce the pressure of wildlife crime on endangered species. But we have an extra sort of twist to what we do, because we're only dealing, or we deal primarily with just 3 species, our 3 target species. You all know about the rhino now, because the American ambassador already told you that Vietnam lost its rhinos in 2010, the last one in Cap Tien National Park. I was fortunate in one of my first visits to Vietnam to go and look for the rhino in Cap Tien, and I never saw one, but I did see its footprints. So I think that was quite a good achievement anyway. We also deal with elephants, and again you've heard that in Vietnam you might be down to about 100 elephants now, 100, 120, we're not quite sure. And the third animal is the pangolin, and as a biologist I can tell you this thing is a bit of a puzzle. We don't know how many remain in the wild. There are 4 species in Africa and 4 species in Asia, and in Vietnam we've got 2 species. We have no idea how many are left, but it is the most heavily trafficked animal on Earth. Now, if you're trying to address wildlife crime, you have to not concentrate on one task. And we've got 3 tasks that you must combine if you're going to be effective. The first one is to improve your legal system, so there are no loopholes, so no criminals can slip through. You've also then got to give assistance to the people that are going to enforce those laws. That's your police officers, your forest protection officers, your customs agents. You must ensure that they have the capacity to act on those laws. And you have to work with the community to try and reduce the demand for wildlife products. You must do those 3 simultaneously. You must do them together if you're going to reduce the pressure of wildlife crime. Now let's take you through very quickly what we're doing in each of those tasks. With the legal framework, you can see here, around here, these are all the people we work with currently. And these are the things that we try and implement together with our government partners. So this is very much what your government is trying to achieve. How do we improve law enforcement? Well, we work with all of these agencies on these tasks. Now, you cannot assume that all of your law enforcement officers understand the law. Why do I say that? Well, as you've heard, the penal code has been really strengthened very recently. But legal documents are written in legal language by lawyers. Do we have any lawyers in the room? No? Good. Okay. Because lawyers talk in lawyer language and it's very difficult to understand. So a lot of our work is involved with not only strengthening the law, but then making sure the law enforcement officers can understand it. And to do that, we spend a lot of time converting the legal documents into handbooks, practical handbooks for the law enforcement officers to use. Consumer demand. Well, this is where my colleagues in traffic help us enormously. Again, you can see who we work with and what we're trying to do through these organisations. You heard just recently the last speaker from ENV, Ms. Zong. This is what you can all do. I was very pleased to hear her last remarks. You're all mostly young people in this room, and you look at something like this and you say, I can't do anything about this. It's much too big for me. Oh, really? I'll just point out that a few months ago, no one had heard of a 15-year-old schoolgirl. You know what I'm talking about? Greta Thunberg, who spoke to the UN General Assembly just last week. That's not bad for a 15-year-old. You can do something. These are the government ministries we work with, as you can see here. And sometimes, I'll admit, it's difficult to work with government departments. It is. But what we do in Saving Species, we work through them because we feel that that can give us the best long-term results that benefit Vietnam. Now, what did we do last year? Well, we did this last year. We looked at all these activities. There's task 1, task 2, task 3, and you can see we were quite busy, to put it mildly. And you can see that we've got 17 activities were completed and 27 continued. Now, why didn't we finish them? Well, it's because we've discovered that if you do something like the law improvement, you have to then follow it with getting that law out to all 63 provinces in Vietnam and to all the law enforcement officers in those provinces. And you've got to translate it into plain language. So that's why we're continuing. Now the next few slides are just some nice slides. I hope you think they're nice, of what we've actually, pretty picture type stuff, because I know I'm the last speaker. And I know you're all sitting there thinking, oh, I hope he shuts up soon. Okay? I put this one in. You might see there's the ambassador there. It's a pity he's just left. There's the South African ambassador. And this was our launch. It surprised me a little bit because we ended up with so many media people there that we really couldn't get them in the room. And I took that as an indication of the interest in trying to do something like wildlife crime. There is great interest in Vietnam in this as a subject. We've already assisted with 3 pieces of legislation, which you can see there, which are necessary because when you amend a penal code, that's really the top layer law that you've got after your constitution. Okay? So if you change the top, it means that things underneath need to be changed as well. So what we did was we concentrated on assisting the government to change these pieces of legislation. And these will add to law enforcement and prosecution. We've also helped the National Assembly to do an investigation of the implementation of laws for wildlife crime around Vietnam, and they're just about, in the next month, to present their report to the National Assembly. And in that report, they make recommendations for actions to be taken. And that's really important because for us, I expect that other agencies will come to us now and say, can you help us do this? And can you help us do that? And we'll be delighted to try and help them. We trained 220 law enforcement officers. This is about to explode in terms of numbers because we spent an awful long time these last few months preparing training materials as a result of the laws that we helped to change. So you can see it's all connected together now. And if I give you this talk next year, I think we'll be up into well over the 2,000 law enforcement officers trained. We also work with the training institutions like the People's Police Academy, and they train 1,400 young officers each year. So if we can get the training materials in there, you can see that it starts to multiply. This was a very interesting one. Lao Cai, and you all know where that is, it's on the Chinese border, has been accused of being a hotspot for trafficking. Well, they came to us, the People's Committee there came to us and said, could we assist them to set up a wildlife enforcement network within the province? So we said, sure. And they totally surprised us by coming out with a very sophisticated, formal protocol for cooperation amongst the law enforcement agencies in Lao Cai. And they didn't stop there because the People's Committee then said, well, would you like us to take this to other provinces to see if we can duplicate it? And that's exactly what we're doing now. But I think it's very promising that the people of Lao Cai themselves came forward and said, we would like to do this. We did a consumer survey, which was a very interesting exercise, and this identified the consumers of ivory, rhino and pangolin in Vietnam. It was anonymous, obviously, but it gives us an idea of the sort of people that actually buy this stuff and use it. And what that means is we can then target messages for those people to see if we can reduce their use of these products. It also came out with a very interesting statistic. 50% of all the people that were interviewed either knew nothing about the wildlife laws of Vietnam or nothing about the penalties associated with infringing those laws. Very interesting. It tells you there's a real need for public awareness raising just on the law. And again, I think ENV's short film might very much help with that. We went to VCOM, the e-commerce association, and were very surprised with their enthusiasm and commitment that they showed. And you can see there that we reached quite a few people who are IT professionals within Vietnam. After that first meeting with VCOM, some of the companies themselves came to us and said, can you come and talk to our employees? So we did. And you can see again, most of them are of your age group, they're young people. And they were really, really interested and really enthusiastic. It's a pity that Steph's gone from the UK Embassy. I don't know if any of you saw this, the UK festival, the wildlife village that we put together. We had thousands and thousands of people, many children, coming to this village to get messages about wildlife, not just wildlife trafficking, but wildlife protection generally. And it was a great weekend around Hon Kim Lake, and we may do something similar again in the next couple of years. So, just to recap, there's all the partners we have that we work with. It's always increasing. Maybe some of you might become some of our partners, and if you do, We also work around the country, and you can see there some of the places we've been, mostly doing trainings and workshops. And if you do want to become a partner, or you do want to learn some more about us, that's where you can find us. It's not very far from here, and we'll be always glad to talk to you. Thank you very much.